Dee Odlin and Stacy Collins.
Do you ever feel like you are constantly searching for that next shiny new thing that's going to engage your people and let you focus on what you love most about ministry? I'm Mindy Odlin.
And I'm Stacy Collins.
And in this episode of The Leading Edge, we are pulling back the curtain on how to use small groups as a part of a mission-centric ministry growth strategy. So we are here to answer your questions. We are here to lay out today a proven strategy for scalable growth and to let you get back to doing the things that you love to do.
Yes, and I'm so happy to be here to help share the voice of experience. I'll share with you our process with small groups of Unity of Houston, how we made the transition, and how we use this structure to continue to grow and expand. Yes, even in the midst of a pandemic.
Yes, even in the midst of a pandemic, you can still grow. In fact, this thing's going on so long. It's important that we have a system and a structure that allows us to grow, no matter what is going on out there in the world. So this is a great episode to share with your teams. It is something that I encourage you to subscribe to. We're going to do a tee up this week, and then we're going to go into more detail through our next through the rest of this series, more detail on each of the things we talk about today. So we'll introduce you to some strategies today that you can make use of very practically in your ministry. So subscribe and follow along and share this. We're going to map out a journey for you and for your teams to help you have the most impact you possibly can while doing ministry, while doing the pieces that you really love and not getting all bogged down in all of the administrative pieces that go into building an organization. So what if you could have a structure? What if there was a way to do this that was simple, that was scalable, that was duplicatable? That's what we want to share with you today. But before we do, we always begin each of our new episodes with a check-in, a chance to reflect on last week's episode. Last week was juicy. Stacy, that was so fun.
Juicy.
Yeah, we had Reverend Karen Tudor in the house with us, and we talked about the money mindset of a mission-driven leader. Stacy, what were your big takeaways? You've been thinking about it this week?
Oh my goodness, so many. One of the things that really resonated with me is this relationship between our mission and creating a culture of giving. And it's that inspirational mission that we can put into practice that really inspires people to give. It's not about nickel and diming and trying to make 20 cents off of a cup of coffee or anything like that. It's about creating that inspirational, idea and purpose for people to give into.
I love that. I love that. And for me, the thing that's been sort of on my mind as I think about last week's conversation and really leading into what we're talking about today is that scarcity mindset and how it impacts some of the decisions that we made. Because I've seen, when you feel like there's not enough, or you feel like there's not enough people, there's not enough money, there's not enough giving, and I've been there myself. I know that I have been in that position where I'm like racking my brain, like, what can I do? What can I do to make it more fun? What can I do to make it more engaging? What shiny little thing do I need to throw into the mix, to mix things up, to make it more exciting, to get those new people in? And I've done this, and I've seen others do it, where we just go out of our way trying to do more when really what we should be doing is less. It's the way to get more is not to do more. It's sometimes to do less, which can be a little bit counterintuitive. We want to, I need to try to do more to get more people in. But really, sometimes it's just a question of what can we simplify? What can we do less of? And that's what today is about. Today is, what is the essence? What is the foundation structurally that you build upon? And the more streamlined and solid we build that foundation, the easier it is for us to really focus on the pieces that we all love. We all love ministry. Like we love speaking and praying with people and bringing people together and creating those transformational experiences. And sometimes we get so bogged down in just trying to, my mentor used to say, just keep the wheels on the bus. We're just scrambling to keep the organization afloat and missing out on sometimes the things that really brought us to ministry in the first place. So, so have you had that experience? I know you lead the SpiritGroups small group ministry program at Unity of Houston. What has your experience been like in terms of stepping into this structure that we're going to talk about today, a structure that is repeatable, a structure that's fairly simple and then adaptable to the people that come in? What's it been like for you?
Yeah, the wonderful thing, like you said, so structure is a key word to being able to replicate it easily. You're not reinventing the wheel every quarter. You're not trying to brainstorm for that shiny new object and see what do people want now? That's always the question. And when you have a structure for small groups and people can, once they get the actual structure, so that's important. I know we're going to talk about that. Then there's freedom within that structure. And then that's where people can kind of do the things that kind of spark their interests. And so it's not about us creating new things for them. It's being created from within the group itself.
I love that idea because I think sometimes as leaders, we think that we have to create the newness, we have to create the buzz. And what this is doing is, in a mission-centric organization where you have small groups, is it's empowering people and equipping them. What is it that lights you up? Because all you need is a small group of people, and you can do that once it's within this structure. And that's, I think, the key. And that's what we're going to talk about today is, what is that structure? How do you create it? How do you transition into structure when maybe you haven't had structure in the past? I know the big joke when I started out as a spiritual leader was, I don't do organized religion, and that's why I do unity. Because we're completely disorganized. Let's not affirm that, shall we? Let's not affirm that. But I think there is sort of an allergy sometimes to when we say systems and when we say structure, that people think big church, or they think restriction. They think, oh, I can't do the things I want to do, when really the opposite is true. When we have a structure that is proven, that works, that is streamlined, it does, like you say, it does create a lot of freedom and flexibility within that structure for people to really bring their own gifts. So that's what we're going to talk about today. When I was first putting together the Spirit Group program, of course, it was based on lots and lots of research, primarily in non-denominational churches. All of them started in living rooms or garages or small groups, and all of them had grown to 20,000 people on Sunday or more. So those were the churches that I studied. Like, how do you do that? How do you build something from a small group of people into a huge movement? And here's what I noticed is that the churches that use this model, with this structure. Now, we've translated it into New Thought, but the structural piece is actually very similar to what the mega churches have built, because it works. And whether you want to be a big church or not, it creates a duplicatable, scalable system that doesn't wear out the team. So, and that's the big thing I noticed when I was studying these churches, is there weren't a bunch of extra activities. I mean, there wasn't a bulletin that had 20 pages, and I've seen them. I have seen literally 20-page bulletins of, here's all the stuff that we have going on. And when I remember this one church I went to, they put the bulletin in my hand, and it looked like a brochure, and it was like a little trifold, and it was like, here's what you need to, here's a third of that you're going to turn in with your contact information, and the rest of it was like 2 things that I could do next. Like, give us your contact information and join a small group, or come to our spaghetti dinner. I mean, it was like literally 2 things. And I noticed that wasn't like, oh, I just came at a slow time. That's their system. There's not all of these shiny things competing for people's attention. There is their system for how do they outreach to new people? How do they bring those people into their community? How do they minister to them and find out about them, find out how they can help them, get them plugged in? That everything is designed for supporting an individual to come into their community and be embraced by the community. And it's not a bunch of concerts. It's not a bunch of yard sales, certainly not yard sales to fundraise. It's like just a very different consciousness that was very inspiring to me, even though the message didn't click 100%, because I come from a New Thought background, but the structure felt really, really good. And so that's what we're going to share, some of the highlights and some of the things that we've taken from that and borrowed from that and shared with our New Thought movement. So the solution to there's not enough is not do more. And if you're a note taker, I think that's the big thing to write down. The answer is not do more. If you don't have enough, the answer is not do more. And I think it's challenging because a lot of churches these days, a lot of us, we've been bigger before. We've had more people, and whether it was from COVID or prior to that. There's been a lot of churches in decline, and maybe your church used to have 500 people, but now it has 200 people, or it used to have 300 people and now it has 100 people. I think what happens sometimes is people come into a community that is large, and you have all these programs and all these services and all these classes, and then the church gets smaller and you feel like the staff feels like we have to keep offering those same things or we're going to lose people. And it's that fear of loss and, that unwillingness to say, okay, well, we have fewer people, fewer resources. We need to scale down, and knowing as we scale down, how do we scale down to what matters most? So what are some of the changes that you've seen at Unity of Houston related to, COVID and what's been happening by taking things online, or just anything that you've seen in terms of changes as you've moved through a lot of cultural shift in that community?
Right. Well, one of the things that the small group program, will be our fourth fall doing small groups. And so we have seen a shift from having so many activities. We were one of those where our calendar was just completely booked. We squeezed everything we could into every nook and cranny. And so we've really seen a streamlining of that with having small groups, that a lot of things that maybe wanted to be yet another workshop or maybe wanted to be yet another separate book study are now folded into our small group program. But one of the things too that I think is a really great opportunity right now, as so many of us are in flux, are we opening back up all the way? We're still virtual / physical? And I think that's going to be forever. We're going to have online offerings and physical offerings. We really have this beautiful opportunity to ask ourselves, what needs to come back and why? We don't have to just look at the calendar and say, oh, when are we going to start doing this again, this again, this again? It's really kind of okay, we have this opportunity to see what it is that's being asked for in this moment, and not necessarily going back to everything that we were doing pre-COVID.
I love that. I mean, what an opportunity we have now, because it is difficult to take away something that people have come to love. I know that a lot of communities have their traditions, like we always do the fall concert, and we always do the Christmas everything, and we always do the summer yard sale, whatever it is. You have those things you always do, that when you even hint at the fact that maybe we don't have the support staff to be able to do that, and then people are like, but what? There's that reaction to it, like, what? How can you? And so it's really difficult to pull the plug on some things that we really have been needing to pull the plug on. And I think one of the blessings of COVID has been that it has really, it's not my fault. It's not my choice. We've got it. We can't do anything in person anymore. So it's given us that clean slate to be able to say, okay, now we have to decide what comes back, if it comes back, and when it comes back. So I think that is a gift. And the other thing I love that you said, Stacey, is that, when we talk about moving to a small group culture and we talk about canceling things, and I know nobody likes the takeaway. Nobody likes saying, oh, we can't do the things that we used to do that we love so much. What we're talking about is not necessarily that you don't do them anymore. It's that the staff doesn't do them. It's that the church doesn't coordinate them. When you have a small group structure, I'll take a yard sale, for example. I had a ministry I was working with. They did this big yard sale. They loved it. It was something they did every year. Everyone looked forward to it. And it's like, okay, well, if you look at, core operations, it demanded a lot. They did a lot of promotion. It was in the bulletin. It was in the announcements. They did, all kinds of things to promote. They took up rooms and rooms in the church, and it was a very big deal. So what we talked about, I said, in a small group ministry structure, what you would do is you would say, okay, we do small groups. And on Sunday, what we promote is small groups. Get into a group, get into a group, get into a group. Because what we do within those small groups is social events. We do service projects. And if you are one of those people that is so passionate about doing the yard sale, then get into a small group that wants to organize the yard sale, and let that be your service project. So it's not landing on the minister. How many times have you seen a minister who should be working on their Sunday talk, But what are they doing? They're, putting price tags on things at the yard sale. And not that we don't want to be there and connect with people, but there's a lot of things that get put on staff. There's a lot of staff right now that I see is completely overwhelmed with all the tasks that are involved in not just planning for Sunday, but maybe it's going to be online, maybe it's going to be hybrid, maybe, like all these things. It's difficult. And the more we can simplify things and say, okay, well, that yard sale or that concert or that thing that we've done in the past is not the most mission critical thing that we do. What's mission critical is that we bring people together in small groups. And those small groups are then empowered. If you want the concert, your small group can organize a concert, and your small group can organize a yard sale, and your small group can organize whatever you want to do, because that's built into the structure. And it creates so much flexibility and ease and manageability for your team. And it also is what allows your ministry to ebb and flow, as your numbers get bigger. You have more small groups, more projects, more things happen. And as your numbers get smaller, then, it's like, okay, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in a group. So engage your group and have your group choose what you want to do. So it's the individuals that are making choices about things like that. So I'm seeing you nod.
Yeah.
So any thoughts on that, Stacey?
Yes, I'm thinking of so many examples. I just had, it seems like a silly one the other day, but it was an aha for me that back before we did small groups, we had our couples group, we had our singles group, we had, and over the years, the numbers had dwindled a bit, but the activities had not. They had stayed the same. A monthly couples luncheon, a monthly singles, or weekly singles one, a quarterly this, and it was always about, oh, we need to advertise for these because they're not getting the numbers. So let's advertise. Let's make sure it's on the website. Let's send it in e-blast. And then the other day I was out and happened to see a group of people out in the courtyard, and it was a spirit group. They were gathering for lunch on their own after church, and a lot of them are doing things like that. And it's like, I had no idea they were doing that. I don't need to know. It's wonderful. They want to eat lunch together, and they self-organize to do that. And, it's a beautiful thing to put that part upon them, and they're feeling completely supported too by the structure of the group and the support they get from the program director and the leadership. But they can take those activities and service projects too and take them and run with them, whatever they want it to look like.
Isn't that great? Isn't it great to be able to, and I say, isn't it great? But it can feel different when you let go of that control. Like, not everything has to come through us. Not everything has to be overstamped by us to really empower your community, because you have this structure for training your leaders so that everything they're doing is part of the mission of the organization. So if getting together for lunch after service is something that's going to help you fulfill that mission, then do it. And they do, and you don't need to make announcements. That is such a great example of, there's not enough people, so we need to do more. There's not enough interest, so we need to do more marketing. We need to work harder because there's not enough, versus, hey, there's enough people to organize as a small group, and that small group can organize whatever they want to do. And the nice thing, what that does is, in your messaging, in your Sunday announcements, you're not saying, here's the 10 things going on this week at our church. You're saying, by the way, if you're not connected with a group, go find one of our groups. And there may be 10 different, 20 different, 100 different groups going on, but they're all using the same structure. They're all following the same patterns. And so people can just find the one that best resonates with them. So that's what we're going to talk about, is how do you do this? How do you implement this structure? And we would also love, if you've got questions about this, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of how do you do this? So if you have questions, feel free to call in. Stacey, how do they call in?
Oh, Mindy, it's so easy. All they need to do is dial 816-251-3555. We'd love to hear from you.
We would love to hear from you, whether you have a question or you just have a story you want to share, or you just want to jump in and say, oh, yeah, that happened to us, and here's what we did. We do love hearing from you. We also have a Facebook group. It's at facebook.com/SpiritGroups. And that group is going to be available probably through the end until after Thanksgiving. So if you have questions that you have for how do I do this? How do I do this in my ministry? I encourage you to go there and post your questions. There's a wonderful community of people who have gone through training and are doing this and have done it, like Stacy, for years. And there's wonderful wisdom and expertise out there for you. So, okay, so here's where we're going with the how-tos for today. So what I'm going to be sharing with you in terms of how do you create these streamlined systems is three things. First, we're going to talk about annual planning, which is what does the year look like? We're also going to talk about series planning, and I'll share with you the strategy. Stacey will share with you what they do in Houston, and we'll share some best practices for how to plan out a small group series. And then we're also going to talk about the specifics of scalability, and we'll be sharing with you the model that we've used for the past 8 years with SpiritGroups for engaging people and creating this system that is duplicatable, meaning that once you've taught one person, it's as easy to do this. I would say close. It's not exactly, but it's roughly as easy to do this with one group leader as it is 10 group leaders. It's about as easy to do this with 10 group leaders as it is 100 group leaders. And that's what we talk about with saying it is scalable, it is duplicatable. Once you have it created, then it doesn't matter how many people come into the system, you can manage it with a relatively small and committed staff, right, Stacey?
Right.
So, Stacey, before we get into the details, what would you say, how much time do you put into it? What is, if someone's thinking, hey, we want to do small groups, what are the resources in terms of leadership and having someone coordinate? What are we looking at? What should someone expect?
So for the role that I'm in as program director, I purely for small groups only. It's a few hour a week, I would say, but then I do a little bit more too. But if you have a committed volunteer, I would say you could start out with this even a couple, 3 hours a week. Once they know the system, to really start this going forward. And then your hosts, of course, your group hosts, they will. The part of that is to support them. And so the better you could train them, I don't want to say the less support they need, but you won't be doing hand holding. You'll be really just encouraging. And then they will also take that to the next person and help that person understand how it works. So
yeah, that's the beauty of it. We'll talk about specifically how do you cultivate that. And that's why I always tell people, if you're going to do this, commit to at least 3 years, 3 to 5 years to do it, to repeat it, and then to fine tune it. Because that's really that's what makes it part of the culture and not just the next shiny new thing. So I'm going to get into just a little bit about overview of the year. So you can be thinking about this. So know that when we talk about small group ministry, this is not, some people say, oh yeah, I've done small group ministry because we do a fall series every fall. And we've done small groups in the fall. And that is, I hear people talk about that. And when they say small group ministry, that's what they're thinking of, is a fall book study or something like that. And that's not what we're talking about. When we talk about small group ministry, what we're talking about is ongoingly, meaning throughout the year. If someone comes into your ministry and they are new to your ministry, at any time of the year, on any given Sunday, they could get a call to action to connect with a group and to get plugged into a group. So it doesn't matter when you arrive, that there is someone there saying, hey, I've got some friends that I would love to introduce you to. So I'll share with you what that looks like in terms of how our structure works and how we keep the doors open so that there is always an opportunity when someone comes in your door to get them plugged in as fast as possible. And that is so important, so they don't just come in and say, oh, like everybody already knows each other. Everybody, it's like they've got their thing and I don't know where I fit in. We want people to feel connected, not just connected like somebody serves them a cup of coffee and smiles at them, but connected like somebody cares about their life and wants to support them in creating the changes they want to create. Fall is the best time to be launching small groups. When people are back to school, we launch our fall series in mid to late September with the goal of concluding them before Thanksgiving. And that's just the psychology of groups. People are getting back to school. They're looking for ways to connect. The holidays, we do things a little bit differently. We ease up a little bit. We'll talk more about that. And then in January, people setting their goals. They're getting, setting their resolutions. We promote the first few weeks of January, and then launch either the end of January or early February for our winter series. Spring series comes a couple weeks after Easter. And the whole thinking in this is, when are your peak attendance weeks? Because you don't want to have groups launching that week. You want to be promoting your groups that week. So the strategy is you look for the times when when you have the most newcomers, the most people coming back into your community, and that's when you want to be recruiting. That's when you want to be focusing all your energy in spreading the word that these groups are going. Get yourself plugged in. So we always have our launches intentionally a couple weeks after Easter, a couple weeks after the new year, a couple weeks after back to school, to be able to ride that wave. And then in the summer's a little bit different too. So we'll talk about some of the specifics about summer season and holidays and how to get ready for that when we come back. If you've got questions, feel free to call us. We'd love to hear from you and learn more about what you are doing in your communities. So, Stacy, you excited?
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. It's great to have you here. And we're going to talk about specifically what Houston's doing and how to get connected with that as well. So we'll be back in just a few moments.
All right.